Okay, so we'll start. In today's class, what we are going to do is, first of all, we will try to uh, discuss the theoretical questions and case studies which were given in last class and try to find out what can be the model answer for that. And thereafter, we will discuss some case specific ethical theories which we apply as far as the case studies are concerned. As I keep on telling, there are more than 27 ethical theories which can be applied in specific cases. Some we have already discussed earlier in earlier classes, and balance theories we will be discussing today. So this is the format of the class. So now let us try to see what was the questions given last class and what can be the model answer for that. As you remember, every week I give two theoretical questions and two case studies. So the theoretical questions and case studies which were given last week were like this. If you see, the first question was, empathy without competence is charity. Competence without empathy is cold efficiency. Discuss how a balance of empathy and professional capability is vital for public service delivery, especially for the marginalized. So basically, before starting, we should understand what is asked in the question. So if you see, first sentence is just a kind of quotation given, and then second line is, or second sentence is actual question. So basically the question is, discuss how a balance of empathy and professional capability is vital for public service delivery, and especially we have to discuss this in the context of the marginalized. So while and the number of words are very, very limited. As you know, this is a 10 marks question for 150 words. So you cannot waste even a single sentence or single word. So you have to be very, very careful while starting and ending. Then besides that, you should have appropriate quotations and also references of the ethical thinkers, of the ethical theories, and also the live examples in the field by concurrent administrators. So all these things we have to write in this 150 words answer. So if you, again, I will repeat the question again because just to, so empathy without competence is charity. Competence without empathy is cold efficiency. Discuss how a balance of empathy and professional capability is vital for public service delivery, especially for marginalized. Now to start the answer, let us see. The effective public service requires a judicious blend of empathy, that is ability to understand others' suffering, and competence, ability to respond with skill and efficiency. So now you see both words, empathy and competence, are very briefly explained here in a very simple phrases, so that it gives the examiner a feeling that you understand very well and you are not wasting any sentence or words also in explaining that, because actually you have to discuss how a balance of empathy and professional capability is required for administrator. So you cannot waste a number of lines or sentences for explaining what is empathy or what is competence, because that is actually not asked here. So I keep on again and again telling, we have to dissect the question first. We have to try to understand what is the thrust of the question, what is being asked, and accordingly we have to frame the answer. So it's like this. When empathy exists without capability, it results in well-meaning but ineffective charity. Conversely, pure competence without emotional sensitivity leads to bureaucratic coldness. Now, this sentence here, basically, if you see, reflects the first sentence of the question itself. So basically, first sentence of question, and this is explanation. I mean, this is explanation of that. So, and this is giving strength to our answer also and link to further next paragraphs also. So therefore, this is important. And then now we'll try to give some examples, some ethical theories which support this argument. So accordingly, Mahatma Gandhi's principle of Antyodaya emphasized service to most vulnerable, demanding both heartfelt concern and responsible action. So this is first quotation or quote we are giving. Then Amartya Sen's capability approach also will try to refer here. So Amartya Sen's capability approach furthers this by asserting that governance must enhance real freedoms, not merely deliver resources. So this is second. Then again, Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence framework we are quoting here because that also reinforces that empathy enhances leadership, decision making, especially in welfare delivery. And for marginalized sections of society, welfare delivery is very, very important. So therefore, Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence framework, in which empathy is one of the important constituents, is being referred here. And then we are trying to refer live examples of administrators. For example, S.R. Sankaran, Kiran Bedi, because they have done good work and great reforms in their fields whenever they were functioning. So, for example, S.R. Sankaran is known for Dalit upliftment, tribal upliftment. Kiran Bedi for prison reforms. So, I mean, this signifies human dignity, exemplifies this balance in action, because empathy plus competence, both. So unless both are there, this kind of balance in action will not be visible. Then again, we are quoting another document, Second Administrative Reforms Commission report, second ARC, advocates citizen-centric governance, which depends on both emotional insight and institutional ability. So this is again a mixture of empathy as well as competence. Thus, ethical and effective governance must combine emotional intelligence with professional acumen to ensure inclusive and humane public service. So this completes our first question. Now we'll go to second question. Now second question is, if you see, tolerance and compassion are not just personal virtues, but public obligations in civil services. Examine this with reference to the role of a civil servant in handling communal violence, refugee crisis, or caste-based conflicts. So basically, this question, again, we have to examine this, that tolerance and compassion are public obligation in civil services with respect to handling communal violence, refugee crisis, or caste-based conflicts. So accordingly, again, we will have to give a few references, then we have to give a few examples, and then we have to try to be focused on the question itself. So now let us see. In a pluralistic society and emotionally charged society like India, tolerance and compassion are not mere private virtues, but essential public values for civil servants. They ensure inclusive, fair, and humane governance, especially during social conflicts. So why here social conflicts we are mentioning? Because all this, communal violence, refugee crisis, and caste-based conflicts are subcomponents of social conflicts. So this is what we are saying now. And further, now next paragraphs will try to elaborate that only. Mahatma Gandhi considered Karuna. So Gandhi we are quoting here. Karuna, that is compassion, central to public service. Again, Indian Constitution, through Articles 14, 15, and 21, enshrines the right to equality, non-discrimination, and dignity, principles that civil servants must uphold in letter and spirit. Then, in situations like communal violence, because here three specific situations have been mentioned in the question itself: communal violence, refugee crisis, and caste-based conflicts. So accordingly, we have to, in answer also, we have tried to elaborate or mention and give examples pertaining to that. So in situations like communal violence, officers must act with tolerance, ensuring neutrality, protecting all communities, and preventing inflammatory narratives. Similarly, during a refugee crisis, compassion enables empathetic relief measures, provision of shelter, food, and health beyond procedural minimalism. In caste-based conflicts, again, a civil servant must combine firmness with sensitivity, protecting victims, fostering reconciliation, and upholding constitutional morality against entrenched social bias. Then we will try to quote a few ethical theories also. For example, virtue ethics views compassion as a civic virtue, while Rawlsian justice, John Rawls' justice theory, demands fair treatment for the least advantaged. Then again, second ARC, the document also advocates citizen-centric and empathetic governance. Thus, tolerance and compassion are indispensable to ethical public administration, ensuring justice, restoring dignity, and reinforcing democratic integrity in times of crisis. Now, this completes our both questions. Now we'll go to case studies. Two case studies also we have given last week. So case study, first case study read like, you are Secretary of Ministry of Environment, a foreign MNC proposes a green energy project, that is solar fields, that will displace indigenous tribal groups from their secured lands. Approving the project supports climate goals but violates tribal rights and cultural heritage. How would you handle this situation? So this is the case study. Now, what are the various ethical dilemmas? Let us try to understand that. Now, in this, advancing climate commitments versus protecting tribal rights. Climate commitments, because this is a greenfield, green energy project, solar project, and it advances the climate commitments, whether it is Paris Convention or whether it is any other international convention for which India is signatory. Then protecting tribal rights is very, very important because you are displacing the tribal. So this is first dilemma. Second is global environment responsibility versus constitutional duty towards marginalized communities. So this is again ethical dilemma we are having. Now, who are the stakeholders? Let us try to understand that. First thing, indigenous tribal communities. This is a very strong stakeholder here because they are being displaced. Then second is government, because it has some climate targets given by international agencies and development objectives are also there. Third, foreign investors, the economic interests are there because if they are coming for investment, we should promote that investment because that it will increase economic activities and development also. Then broader society is again a stakeholder here because sustainability and social justice both are related to broader society goals. And future generations, because whenever ecology or environment is involved, future generations also become very, very strong stakeholders. So here, these are the stakeholders if we see clearly. Now, what should be our approach to ethical decision making? Because now this is really a problem, and usually bureaucrats will face this kind of problem. So what will be the approach? First step is comprehensive assessment. Commission a detailed environmental, social, and cultural impact assessment to evaluate consequences beyond ecological metrics. And this can be done because you are secretary of the department, Ministry of Government. So you are head of the department. So definitely you can commission a study like this. So for comprehensive assessment, commission a study. Then second is free, prior, and informed consent. Uphold the Forest Rights Act 2006 and international frameworks, for example, UN Declaration on Rights and of Indigenous People, consent of tribal communities, essential, not procedural. So, a free, prior, and informed consent of tribal should be taken for any use of a tribal land for other than themselves. Then explore alternatives. You have to explore other alternatives. So collaborate with MNC to identify alternate sites or reconfigure project designed to avoid impacting secured lands. So this again important step that if possible some other alternative can be selected or at least lesser area can be taken. So this again is important. The next is participatory dialogue. Facilitate structured consultations with tribal leaders, anthropologists, and civil society organizations to ensure genuine representation of concern. And last is sustainable balancing. That is, climate goals must be pursued in a way that integrates ecological sustainability with social and cultural justice. Projects violating fundamental rights must not proceed even if environmentally beneficial. So this is again very, very important because you cannot displace one vulnerable community or marginalized community, even in the name of environment or environmentally beneficial project. This is again important. Now, for this kind of decision, what is the justification? What are the ethical principles which support this kind of decision? So now let us see that. So for example, Raoult's justice as a fairness. So protecting the most vulnerable must guide decision. So this is Raoult's theory. Then stewardship ethics. Indigenous cultures embody sustainable living models critical for true environment stewardship. So this again another ethical theory which suggests this kind of decision. Then deontological theory of Kant. Human dignity and cultural identity are inviolable irrespective of utilitarian gains. So this is again supporting our decision. And then constitutional mandate. Article 21, right to life and dignity, 25, right to religious practice, and the fifth schedule reinforce the protection of tribal rights. So this is again an important constitutional provisions also support this. So conclusion is true sustainability harmonizes climate action with human dignity and cultural preservation. Ethical governance demands inclusive development where no community is sacrificed for larger goals. So this is again very, very important. So basically, we have to prioritize or we have to give priority to the interests of the vulnerable community like tribal groups over even the green kind of development or green development also. So that's what is we first have to try to balance, and if possible, both can go together. But if not possible, then the priority should be given to this. Now let us see case study 2, which is again very important case study because these kind of situations keep on happening in various offices. You are asked to handle an RTI request for a controversial project. Key files have disappeared. How would you proceed? Now, this is again important case study, and usually civil servants and bureaucrats keep on facing this kind of situation. So let us see what can be the model answer for this. As a public information officer, I receive an RTI request regarding a controversial infrastructure project under public scrutiny. Upon verification, I find that critical documents are missing. This poses a serious ethical dilemma involving transparency, accountability, institutional responsibility, and potential administrative malpractice. So basically, this is first, introduction kind of thing in the answer where the crux of the problem is explained, and then future course of action is also indicated. Now, what are the ethical issues involved here in this case? Because this is very, very common kind of scenario in many offices. I have also faced so many times, and any bureaucrat or any civil servant is going to face in his career. Now, citizens' right to information, right to information act is there, and the constitution provision is also there. So, for example, Constitution's Article 19(1)(a) and RTI Act 2005. The provisions of both these documents, they establish that citizens have right to correct information. Now, second is duty to uphold integrity and rule of law. This is again important because if some mischief has happened or some wrong act has happened in office, so what should be done? Then conflict between professional ethics and institutional pressure. So this is again important because professional ethics says that yes, you be truthful, you at least take appropriate action as per law. But institutional pressure sometimes try to put pressure for various kinds of compromises. So this is again a conflict. Then possibility of willful suppression or negligence. So this is again another ethical issue involved here. Now let us see what will be the various steps which any officer or any civil servant can take. Or before course of action, let us see what are the various ethical theories and other constitutional provisions, etc., which indicate which kind of action we should take. So, for example, deontological ethics of Kant, ethical duty to disclose truth irrespective of consequences. This is what Kant says. So, if something wrong has happened, you cannot hide it and you have to be truthful. So, this is first point. Constitutional morality, transparency and accountability are non-negotiable values in democracy. So this is again is mentioned in Constitution itself. Then Sardar Patel's vision for civil services bureaucrats must remain impartial custodians of public interest. Another. Then second ARC and Nolan Committee. Nolan Committee of UK, and second ARC of India. Very, very important documents as far as ethics in public administration is concerned. So these two documents emphasize proactive disclosure, record keeping, and whistleblower safeguards. Then relevant case laws. Whenever their legal issues are there, or whenever possibility is there, the Supreme Court cases along with constitutional provisions also need to be mentioned. So here also, CBSE versus Aditya Bandyopadhyay affirmed that RTI's scope in accessing institutional records. So this is a case related to RTI, and here the question of right to information in this case study is anyway there. Now, what will be the course of action after all these ethical theories and also the dilemmas involved we have assessed? Now, let us see what will be the course of action. First is official documentation. Record the non-availability of files with all relevant tracking details. So this should be done immediately without any delay. As soon as you come to know, so record the non-availability of files with all relevant tracking details. Then internal reporting. Inform the superiors in writing and recommend a departmental inquiry into the disappearance. This is again another step which, as an officer responsible, you should take. Third is RTI reply. Respond within the stipulated 30-day period. Section 7 of RTI Act 2006 says, transparently stating that the documents are untraceable and that the appropriate steps are being taken. So this is what you have to tell them. Because you don't have the documents, you cannot provide, but you can tell at least the truth there. Then institutional reform. Recommend digitalization of records, file movement tracking systems, and regular audits. So these institutional reforms basically are going to prevent such kind of mishappenings in future. So this is what you have to do. Then self-protection. Because when you are going to take this kind of action, there will be various allegations, counter allegations, everything will be there in any office. So for self-protection, what you have to do, maintain a documented trail of all actions taken to avoid future victimization or scapegoating. Because it's quite possible that you may be victimized in future. So therefore, you have to maintain a documented trail of all actions. So all these actions you can take. Now, one thing I have not mentioned here, which I just want to tell, because here the officer is PIO, Public Information Officer. But if you are head of the department, you can, because here I have written, inform the superiors in writing and recommend a departmental inquiry into the disappearance. But if you are the head of the office yourself, then you can straightway order the departmental inquiry. And after preliminary inquiry, if some mischief or some criminality is noticed, then you can lodge FIR, you can start disciplinary actions. So all those things you can do. So I mean, depends what is the mentioned in the case study. Accordingly, you can modify your this point. What as a departmental head or as a PIO you are going to take what kind of action. In conclusion, what we will write: transparency builds trust. As a civil servant, I must act within the spirit of constitutional ethics, even if it reveals internal lapses. Ethical courage in such moments strengthens the integrity of democratic institutions. So basically, you have to show the ethical courage, but you have to also see that you are self-protected, because subsequently you should not be victimized. So accordingly, you have to prepare proper documentation that what you have to do. So now this concludes previous week's or previous class question. Now, today we are going to take case study specific additional ethical tools. But before that, what I just want to tell you, what are the ethical tools which we have already covered till now? Because that also, I just a refreshing kind of thing I will tell you so that you can read it yourself if you try. Because in earlier my classes, I have taken class regarding this. I have videos also posted on YouTube channels. You can see there also. See, the roughly about 13 ethical theories we have discussed earlier. So what are the ethical theories we have discussed earlier? First is Kidder's ethical dilemma. Now, this we have discussed, and this I request you also to understand it properly and use it while analyzing the various case studies. Then second, we have discussed Potter box model. This is again very important as far as understanding the structure of the case study and trying step-by-step analysis of case studies. Then Gandhian talisman. This also we have discussed earlier. So this is third ethical theory, which ethical tool which we have discussed. Then another is consequentialism or utilitarianism. So this also we have discussed in detail. So this is fourth. Then deontological ethics, duty-based ethics of Immanuel Kant. So this we have discussed. This is the fifth theory we have discussed. Then virtue ethics of Aristotle. This also we have discussed earlier. Then ethics of care of mainly Carol Gilligan. This also we have discussed. Then justice-based theory, and justice-based theory have 2-3 components. So basically, this is eighth theory which we have discussed, and in justice-based theory, John Rawls is the main. Then Amartya Sen is also there. So all these things we have discussed earlier. Then Indian ethical frameworks also. For example, dharma-based, that is Bhagavad Gita. Then Ahimsa, non-violence of Mahatma Gandhi. Then Buddhist ethics. Then Jaina ethics. All these things we have discussed. Then contractualism of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. That also we have discussed. Right-based theories. This also we have discussed. Then pragmatic ethics. Yes, we have discussed that of William James and John Dewey. Then moral relativism and moral absolutism. So these theories, 13 theories we have already discussed. And now today we are going to discuss case study specific additional ethical tools, which are 14 in number. So basically all this is going to make about 27 ethical tools, which we will have discussed after this class. And this I request you to understand properly and try to use it in case studies wherever applicable, because definitely 2, 3, 4 theories will be applicable in each case study depending on the nature and the substance of the case study. And these theories you can also use in theoretical questions also, because there also these may be relevant in some way. So now let us see what are the case study specific additional ethical tools which we are going to study today. And as I told, there will be 14 in number, and 13 we have already discussed till now. I have already mentioned the list. So totally we are going to discuss 27 ethical theories or ethical tools which we will be applying in different ways in different case studies. So and today what we are discussing is basically domain specific ethical frameworks. So these are very technical kind of domain specific ethical frameworks. These are not general ethical frameworks, because I will distinguish between two like this. One is general ethical frameworks, which may be like duty-based ethics of Kant, or justice theory of Rawls, or virtue ethics of Aristotle. Here it will be domain specific. So now let us see what are they. So first is environmental ethics. Now, environmental ethics, as the word itself says, wherever the question of environment comes, this ethical theory or ethical tool needs to be applied, and the contents of this needs to be mentioned there. Now, environmental ethics studies the moral relationship between human beings and the environment. So basically, this is basically the crux of this thing, emphasizing duties towards nature and future generations. So here two main issues are there. One, your duty towards nature itself, because self-sustainability should be there. So for your lifetime or for our lifetime, nature has to be protected. And for future generations also it should be done. So there is duty towards not only towards nature, but towards future generations also. Now, what are various key ethical principles which are related to environment ethics? First is sustainable development. Second is intergenerational equity. Third is intrinsic value of nature itself. And fourth is precautionary principle. Fifth is polluters pays principle. So basically, these are 5 principles which are related with environmental ethics. So this we need to mention as and when required, depending on the need of the case study or need of the theoretical question. Now, I have tried to give one example also, but for each, what can be the example? Now, this case study, this theory is useful in resolving dilemmas involving deforestation, industrial pollution, biodiversity, urban planning, and climate change trade-offs. So in these kind of case studies or dilemmas, this kind of ethical tool is useful. For example, if you see a civil servant opposing a mining project that threatens tribal displacement and ecological balance can cite environmental ethics to justify the stand. So this is example you can understand, just for understanding. Now, second is media ethics. This is again domain-based ethics. Now, what is media ethics? It deals with ethical principles and standards of conduct in journalism, broadcasting, and content dissemination, whether it is through social media or through normal media, print media, electronic media. So this is media ethics. And what are the key principles, ethical principles involved here? First is truth and objectivity. Second is public interest versus sensationalism. Third is right to information versus right to privacy. Fourth is accountability and editorial responsibility. And fifth is paid news and yellow journalism. So these are again ethical principles related to media ethics, which as and when required, we can use in case studies and theoretical questions. Now, this media ethics will be helpful in dilemmas involving fake news, trial by media, privacy violations, paid news, or whistleblowing. Now, as an example, if you see an officer dealing with media leaks in a sensitive investigation must balance public interest with procedural integrity and legal due process. So this is one example just to understand where it can be applied. Now, similarly, social media ethics. Media ethics may be for print and electronic media. Social media ethics is for normally social media, because now this has become now more dangerous, whether it is, different kinds of social media is there. Now, social media ethics involves responsible and respectful behavior on online platforms, ensuring digital well-being and civility. Now, what are the key issues involved here, or key ethical issues? Invasion of privacy is one. Cyberbullying, trolling, and hate speeches. Second, disinformation and echo chambers is very, very important. Anonymity versus accountability. Behavioral targeting, that is ethics of surveillance capitalism, which was promoted by, or which was coined, this term was coined by Shoshana Zuboff. So this is again very important. Now, where it can be applied? It is applied in resolving conflicts arising from misuse of official social media accounts, trolling of public officials, or viral misinformation. So all these places it can be applied, and many more, because these are only illustrative examples. So definitely this is not exhaustive. Now, what can be the example where it can be applied? A district magistrate deciding whether to suspend a subordinate for sharing sensitive data online without clearance. Now, here social media ethics will be applicable. Now, next is domain-based principle is bioethics. Now, what is bioethics and where it is applicable? It is study of ethical issues arising from biological sciences, medical technologies, and life sciences. So this is covered in bioethics, often involving public health, biotechnology, and policy decisions. Now, its scope includes genetic engineering, euthanasia and assisted dying, artificial reproduction, that is IVF, surrogacy, organ transplantation ethics, environmental bioethics, for example, biodiversity versus biotech, clinical trials and drug testing, AI in healthcare, and health data ethics. So all these places, this can be referred and applied. Now, another is medical ethics. Now, medical ethics in a way is subset of bioethics, but it specializes a little, or going deep in little more in medical profession and medical treatments, etc. So therefore, it's better to focus separately also. Now, medical ethics governs moral conduct in medical practice and healthcare delivery, balancing care with rights. Now, what are the core principles here? And then Beauchamp and Childress, they are again the thinkers, and they have given four principles. Now, what are the four principles, core ethical principles of medical ethics? First is autonomy, that is respecting patients' informed choices. This is first thing. Second is beneficence, acting in the patient's best interest. Third is non-maleficence, that is doing no harm. And fourth is justice, fair distribution of resources. So these four principles they have given, which are clearly applicable in medical ethics. Accordingly, in India, Medical Council of India has Code of Ethics Regulation 2002. So this document also you can quote whenever you are dealing with medical ethics in any case study or even in theoretical question. Now, where it can be applied, it's useful in dilemmas involving end-of-life care, organ donation, patient confidentiality, or triage decisions during pandemics. Now, example can be ethical justification for allocating limited ICU beds during COVID-19. And this has happened also in many hospitals during COVID-19. You may be remembering also. Now, next domain-based ethical tool is biotechnology ethics. Now, this is another subset of bioethics. One is medical, another is biotechnology ethics. Now, this involves moral concern in areas like genetic engineering, cloning, GMOs, stem cell research, and AI in health. So these are covered here in biotechnology ethics. And the key concerns here will be dignity in human life, informed consent, and genetic privacy, risks to natural biodiversity, then playing God, that is moral boundaries of scientific invention, then designer babies. This is again very, very important. Then biotechnology in agriculture, GM crops, etc. And where it is applied, while evaluating policies around vaccine trials, GM crops, AI-enabled surveillance in healthcare. So as example, to understand ethical concerns over CRISPR's gene editing trials on human embryos. So this is again a very, very ethical concern there. So this again, this kind of case study, if comes, this ethical tool can be applied. Another is corporate ethics. Now, corporate ethics, also known as business ethics, refers to moral principles and values that guide behavior in the world of business and commerce. It deals with how companies treat their stakeholders, employees, consumers, investors, society, and the environment beyond profit making, because profit making is anyway their main objective, but along with that, how they are treating other components or stakeholders also, that is dealt here basically. It ensures that economic activities are conducted in a fair, transparent, and socially responsible manner. Now, one important quotation from Ratan Tata is, ethics is the new competitive edge. So this also can be quoted in case studies as well as in theoretical questions. Now, eighth ethical tool here is ethics in private and public relationship. Now, ethics in private or public relationships evaluates integrity, trust, and fairness in interactions across personal and professional spheres. Now, what are the key ethical elements here? Consistency of character, conflict of interest, transparency versus confidentiality, role morality, that is, if you are acting as a father or as an officer, then nepotism and cronyism, favoritism in transfers, appointments, procurement, etc. So all these are covered by ethics in private and public relationships. And where it can be applied, it's relevant when an officer faces ethical conflict between duty and personal relationships. For example, you are opening a tender and some relative is participating, or you are doing some transfers and some relative is putting pressure for some favor. Now, as example, if you see a government officer choosing between favoring a relative in tender process or upholding fairness and impartiality, I've already told this. So this is example to understand. Then another is constitutional morality. Now, this is very, very important. In Indian Constitution, there are a number of articles which infuse moral values in administration or public administration. So those also needs to be mentioned here and there, referred as and when required. So constitutional morality refers to moral values and principles embedded in Constitution, whether it is right to equality, Article 4, whether it is right to freedom, Article 19. Or even preamble also. So all these are all fundamental rights chapter, then directive principle substitute. So many articles do contain number of moral values which needs to be mentioned here and there when we are dealing with case studies or theoretical questions. So moral values and principles embedded in Constitution that guide both functioning of institutions and behavior of citizens and public officials. It goes beyond mere adherence to the text of Constitution and includes a commitment to its spirit. And what are those values? Justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and rule of law, etc. So B.R. Ambedkar is again a constitutional expert, described constitutional morality as the means to achieve a moral society through constitutional methods. So this is a quotation from him, which also can be quoted here and there, depending on your requirement. Then 10th is foundational values of civil servants or civil services. This is again very important. This is mentioned in second ARC. This is mentioned in Nolan Committee reports. So this also are basically moral and constitutional values expected from public servants to uphold public trust and democratic governance. And what are the core values as per second ARC and Nolan Committee? First is integrity, honesty, consistency, and incorruptibility. Second is impartiality and non-partisanship. Then objectivity, rational decision making, empathy and compassion, dedication to public service, accountability and transparency. So these are the main core ethical values which needs to be referred. And the documents, as I have already told, second ARC and Nolan Committee, very, very important. So, and Constitution of India as well. And now, what is philosophical inspiration for these values? For example, Gandhi is very, very important inspiration. Antyodaya and Sarvodaya, compassion and service to the weakest. So this is one inspiration. Then Max Weber is another important thinker and writer. Now he advocates ethics of responsibility in bureaucracy. So this is again important inspiration. And where it can be applied, provides a framework to justify ideal conduct of a civil servant. For example, if you say applying objectivity and transparency in allocation of disaster relief funds and amid political pressure. So this is one example which you can understand. Then another is military ethics, another domain-based ethics, ethical theory. Now, military ethics refers to moral principles and values that guide the conduct of armed forces, both in combat and peacetime. It encompasses decisions about the use of force, obedience to orders, treatment of non-combatants, and personal conduct in the war and service. It serves as the ethical foundation of honorable military conduct, balancing national duty with universal human values. So this is military ethics. Then another is war ethics. Now, war ethics, also known as just war theory, refers to the ethical principles that determine whether it is morally justifiable to go to war, what conduct is permissible during war, what responsibilities exist after war. So these are the main components of this just war theory. It provides a moral framework for balancing national interests, human rights, and global justice in conflict situation. Now, another theory is social theory, social ethics. Now, social ethics refers to moral values and principles guiding human conduct within society. It evaluates how individuals and institutions should behave to ensure justice, harmony, equality, and collective well-being in society. It is concerned with ethical responsibilities of individuals and communities in addressing social issues such as poverty, discrimination, inequality, casteism, gender bias, and injustice. Now, another or last theory which I am going to give you is ethics in international relations. Ethics in international relations refers to the application of moral principles and values such as justice, human rights, equity, and non-aggression. So these are the components where this is applicable to the conduct of states, diplomats, and international institutions in the global arena. It governs the behavior of nation states, diplomatic interactions, foreign policy decisions, and the work of international organizations, ensuring that national interest is balanced with universal human values. Now, conclusion, these domain-specific ethical tools allow aspirants to contextualize their answers in case studies. So you can, if you mention this, your answers definitely will be upgraded and contextualized with greater precision and relevance. They help demonstrate a nuanced ethical perspective and administrative maturity expected of a civil servant. So my request will be, please understand these and try to use as and when required. Now, what will be the questions which we will be dealing next week? So now let us try to understand that. Now, these are the two theoretical questions which I'm giving this week. You are posted in a flood hit district where your subordinates are exhausted and disheartened. How would you apply emotional intelligence to motivate and lead them? And in 150 words. Question 2, integrity must be institutional, not merely personal. Discuss how structural reforms can foster a culture of ethical behavior in civil services. These two questions in 150 words, theoretical questions. Case study 1, blacklisting a national vendor under political pressure. Now, the case study is a vendor supplying midday meal is found violating hygiene norms but has political support. What due process and ethical principles guide your decision? This you have to answer in 250 words. And second case study is diversity quota misuse by elites. You find that influential families have used fake SC certificates to corner reserved jobs. How do you act amidst political patronage? So basically, these two case studies and these two questions we are going to discuss in next class and try to provide the model answer for that. Now this completes my today's class. Again, we will meet next week, next class. I will try to discuss and we will try to take next topic of the ethics syllabus to understand that. Meanwhile, anyway, I am posting daily model questions videos for various model answer videos for various probable questions on YouTube. So you can see there also. And next week again we will meet. So thank you, one and all.